Okay, welcome to using the Alma API to import BIBFRAME. This talk is going to focus on importing to the Alma sandbox using an API. So a brief outline of what I'm going to talk about. Today, I'd like to focus on just talking about some functionality in Alma, such as the API, how you can do editing of BibFrame and then export that BibFrame into Alma. I'll also show what that looks like in Alma, as well as provide some helpful sort of linked data resources at the end of this talk. So beginning in May 2024, um, uh, there was general support for BibFrame in the Alma system, which meant that Alma became sort of this multi-format system supporting the BibFrame classes of BibFrameWork and BibFrame instance. And those are possible to be used throughout your workflow. And the main way that things get into Alma in terms of BibFrame resources is through the API. And I'll talk about how you can create resources using linked data editors and then go ahead and send that data into your Alma system. So this is what BibFrame looks like in Alma right now. If you've probably seen it for a while now, since the transformation code from Library of Congress has been available. Converting Mark into BibFrame has been possible, and we've seen this tab already. So this isn't necessarily a new thing. So BibFrame converted from Mark. You've been able to see that for a while, but it is now what I'm going to show you is BibFrame edited in the Marva editor and exported to the Alma sandbox. This is what sort of like a BibFrame instance might look like in Alma right now. This is just a screenshot of the Penn Library sandbox. So just some background to know about for the API. It's not significantly different from current APIs in Alma. So if you have some experience creating or updating MARC records through the API, it's really you're posting MARC XML structure to an endpoint. So as we look at experimenting with BibFrame, we can reuse this approach by structuring XML for BibFrame, sending it to the API in the structure that Alma expects for the BibFrame format. And that structure, it's not overly complicated, but a detailed read through of their API description is in order. And I help sort of test that, so I'm familiar with like what it is their API is expecting. But as some just general knowledge to have about um, RESTful APIs, these are this is sort of a common pattern for a lot of like interactive data on the web, which is that one way to think about this is things you view on the web, they're usually like rendered in a web page, and that's meant for a human. However, there are also just things that are data that are sort of sent to other computers that are sort of more structured for computers to interpret. So, the XML that a client gets, it's not always meant for human consumption. It might be meant for, say, a program to interpret and do something with. And that's really what's happening here is from our computers, we're going to package up some XML and send it to a server. Usually there's a response from the server that tells us like, okay, that data was accepted, or what happens with me a lot of times is that the data wasn't right, and the server couldn't do anything with it. So this is something I think this model is important to keep in mind. So in terms of BibFrame editing, um, there are several editors available. I'm going to talk about the Library of Congress editor. there was some recent work towards the end of 2024 where Marva Quartz was presented at a BibFrame tactical meeting. And I thought it would be exciting to sort of use it and talk about it a little. So you can surf this up, go to bibframe.org, and you can click on the Marva Quartz interface. You can load with an LCCN number, you can load in a concise bounded description of a work class and an instance class. Um, and you can edit that, but also like the data. This is really starting to realize some of the benefits of linked data is like you can just also just send this into Alma and start to use that data. So that's sort of exciting because you can really like start to access this network of resources that I think linked data makes possible. But it's not the only thing that linked data makes possible. When you get this XML, it's different than it's different than Mark XML in the sense that the RDF XML is meant for inference and reasoning. So, um, this is the RDF that I was just talking about. Um, uh, you're meant to be able to reason over, so like work classes, instance classes, and the various relationships. Here's another view of it. This is the RDF XML that you can access. So like once you were to load in a resource, you can modify that resource. I think there's a really exciting three-panel view where you can set sort of the view in the drop-down, but I think it's valuable to see like how can I build on sort of what I know about Mark while learning about BibFrame, and I think this is really a really nice way to go about doing that. Um, so here's your identifier there, and we're going to use this when we go ahead and start cataloging using the API. So let's move into that, into exporting. Okay, so you can access the scripts at this address. Uh, it's a GitHub repository, and the main script is Marva to Alma. It's a Python notebook, or it's called Jupyter as well. And basically, this demonstrates how you can use an instance and work from the Marva editor, and those will post as a concise bounded BibFrame description to Alma. Some things to have before you do this. You'll want to get an API key. You'll need that API key to do read-write permissions for bib operations. And then I would recommend doing this in your Alma sandbox. So make sure the API is an API for your Alma sandbox and that has read-write permissions for bib operations. There is a setting, and I have it defaulting to the North America region. Note that there's also, if you're in Canada, there's this region. I do know that Canada is in North America, but these are the regions, this sort of these system regions. So it's just something to keep in mind if you're going to use these. So this will be the default, but you can change it. Okay, so in order to get to this, this is the notebook that we're going to use. Right now, GitHub is just rendering the notebook. We can't access the Python kernel from here. And basically, in order to run it, we're going to open this binder. So if you just click this button here, that'll start it up. Sometimes it has errors. I usually just like reload it. You could reload the page if there are errors. You can kind of see what's happening here if you're interested in tracking the progress. But basically, we're looking for it to finish loading and then launch the notebook. So I'm just gonna quickly sort of give you an overview of what's in the notebook. There's only, let's see, there's only 3 cells. So I try to make this as simple as possible. In terms of configuring environment variables, this actually, you won't do this step here if you're in this this notebook because we can't add a .env file here. So I'll just really quickly show you a workaround. This is more like if you're on your own, running your own Jupyter within your terminal on your computer. But because we're in web hosting, you don't necessarily have this .env file. But I'll show you. You can actually add them here if it's not quite loaded properly. Okay, so if you don't define the API key, then it's not loaded. But if you do define those, you actually want to put your real data here, but this will tell you that it's loaded, but without an actual API key, it shouldn't connect. So anyway, there's been some data loaded there now. And this particular XML I'll talk about over in the next cell. So I'll just stop here. Okay, so this part here is cell 3. It's a doozy. What it does is actually package up the XML into the Alma format, and then it also sends it to the APIs, and it uses the credentials from the prior cell. And you don't necessarily have to read through this to really use it. Really, you just have to know that the data that you're sending in is it's going to be from this part, from this cell. And so once that's configured, you can run cell 3, and it'll start that process of packaging it up. Okay, let's talk about running cell 3. Again, we're going to be sending this XML into Alma sandbox. So we just go ahead and run cell 3, and we can see some output down here in the console. It's telling us that it started to package up our work. It's formatted it for Alma in the work XML, and that's what it's sending to the Alma API. And because I've already sent this in, it's updating the work. So it sent me a MMS ID of what it updated for the work. And then just below that, it has also updated the instance. So it always sends the instance after the work. And the BIBFRAME instance MMS ID has also been accepted. So once we have those 2 MMS IDs, we can go ahead and search those in our Alma sandbox and see what the BIBFRAME is going to look like in our Alma. Comes back that you have those MMS IDs. You might have more than one MMS ID. So you could obviously search on that MMS ID here. Another way you could take a look at your resources is you can do this title URI search for id.lsc.gov, and those, like, here's an instance there. So all your id.loc.gov BibFrame resources, those will come up here. And again, this was posting to the sandbox. And I'll stop here with some Alma resources. These will be linked, so you can go ahead and learn more about linked data from Alma APIs, enrichment configurations, Primo, if you're using that, like what value linked data is bringing to Primo, then also this various new interfaces. So thanks so much for listening, and I'm happy to chat with you more and answer questions.